Welcome to Unit 1 Abnormal Psychology, Session number 7 Classification System in Abnormal Behavior. Learning objectives to understand the classification system in abnormal psychology, understanding diagnostic and statistical manual of abnormality. Session outcomes understanding the importance of the classification system in abnormal psychology, knowledge of the DSM. Classification system in abnormality. Classification system in any given science is very important for better comprehension. So it is in the field of abnormal psychology also. The most popular, widely accepted and scientific system of classification in abnormal psychology is the DSM. The abbreviation is DSM and the expanded form is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Abnormal Behavior or Abnormality. DSM is the manual that is published and brought forth by American Psychiatric Association. It is used by psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, nurses, clinicians, counselors across the world for the purpose of diagnosis. It enjoys a higher degree of reliability and validity as well. DSM is very popular not just in America but also in many other countries of the world. Now let us move on to the history of DSM. The first version of DSM was published by APA or American Psychiatric Association in the year 1952. After the Second World War, there were a lot of victims of the war who were having many psychological ailments and mental illness. In order to help them in the classification of and treatment of the mental disorders, APA came up with Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. The second version of DSM was published in the year 1968. The first as well as the second DSM had their own limitations because symptoms were not clearly given, defining criteria was very unclear, and it was in a narrative format, and the impact of psychodynamic view was very evident. They followed the classification of neurosis and psychosis. However, in the first one, there were about 106 or 106 psychological disorders that were listed. Many of them have been abandoned now, so as it was in the second version of the DSM. DSM 3rd was published in the year 1980. There were a lot of controversy with regard to DSM 3 because they wanted to give up the concept of neurosis and psychosis. But the trust members of APA insisted that neurosis should be retained in some categorization. DSM 3rd tried to incorporate some of the new disorders, and the number of disorders increased to about 265. DSM 3rd was again revised in the 1980s. Next, let us move on to DSM 4th. DSM 4th was published in the year 1994. DSM 4th, and again it was text revised in 2000. DSM 4th included clinically significant distress and also impairment of, or rather significant impairment of functioning in occupational, social, and many of the other areas. These two important criteria were included in many of the psychological disorders. So, whenever we will be discussing any particular disorder and the clinical picture of those disorders, when we talk about the defining criteria, this phrase will always be included. And DSM 4th also adapted a multi axis classification of disorders, wherein there were 5 axes in the DSM 4th. They were Axis 1, which included depression, anxiety, and even schizophrenia. Axis 2 included personality disorders and mental retardation. Axis 3 included all those physical and general medical condition caused due to, or rather, psychological factors behind the general medical conditions. A general medical condition contributing to psychological disorders. Fourth axis included psychosocial stressors like social, occupational, familial, etc. Last axis included the global assessment of functioning, in which there were 100 points rating scale, or it was coded in 100 points. Next, we'll be moving on to the DSM 5th, which is presently in use. DSM 5, as I had told earlier, DSM 5 was published by APA in the year 2013, and significant modifications have been made in this DSM when compared to DSM 4 TR. Defining criteria for various disorders has been broadened. At the same time, defining criteria for certain other disorders have been narrowed down also. And some notable changes that are noteworthy in DSM 5 are: autism and Asperger's disorder is now called as autism spectrum disorder. The subtypes of schizophrenia has been dropped. At the same time, bereavement exclusion in depression has been dropped. Gender identity disorder has been renamed as gender dysphoria. The defining criteria for post traumatic stress disorder has been modified. Along with that, the most important thing with regard to DSM 5 is that it has dropped the multi axial system that was there in DSM 4th TR. Rather, in DSM 5, all the disorders are diagnosed on the single axis. Axis 4 of DSM 4th TR has been modified, whereas the Axis 5, which had the GAF, Global Assessment of Functioning, has been excluded completely. Other changes include, though in length DSM 5 is longer than DSM 4th, but the number of disorders has been reduced from 297 to 237 in DSM 5. Now, let us discuss a few strengths of the DSM classification. First and most important strength of DSM is that it has developed evidence based treatment, wherein many research and studies will be conducted on the patients with regard to the effectiveness of treatment. Based on the research findings, which will be published, it will help the mental health practitioners to adapt or to use the best possible treatment method or the most effective treatment procedure for any given patient. The second strength of DSM is that consistency and insurance coverage. Since DSM makes use of a common language that can be understood by doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, nurse, social workers, marriage and family therapists, etc., it becomes easy for them to communicate with each other. It will be easily comprehensible. At the same time, whenever patients are treated and they have to claim the insurance coverage, even the insurance companies require the diagnosis of the patient to be made based on the DSM diagnostic criteria. So, these are the few strengths of DSM. Other than that, DSM classification is supposed to be the most reliable, widely accepted, and popular system of classifying mental disorders across the globe. Now, let's move on to the weakness of the DSM. First point is with regard to its reliability and validity. DSM, from its third version onwards, has tried to establish the diagnostician reliability, wherein two diagnosticians examining the same patient must arrive at the same diagnosis. Yes, that is quite possible, or it has been achieved to some extent by DSM. But the problem is that symptoms of certain disorders are so very overlapping that there is a high degree of comorbidity. And another point to be noted is that real problems of a real patient are very different from what can be listed in any given manual. The second point is that diagnosis is purely based on the superficial symptoms. Though DSM gives emphasis to both signs and symptoms while diagnosing any particular disorder, the problem is that the emphasis is mainly on the superficial ones rather than the actual causes. Another point to be noted here is that when a diagnosis is made, it is like labeling the patient. Once the patient is labeled, it may lead to stigma and stereotype related to that particular patient. Third point is cultural bias. Rather DSM developed by APA is very much applicable to the Euro-American cultures. Non-Western cultures is not so very well represented in DSM. Rather, sometimes it has been criticized that the disorders that are prevalent in the non-Western cultures are either misinterpreted or it is misrepresented in the DSM. To continue with the weakness of DSM, it has led to medicalization, meaning DSM from one version to another has increased the number of disorders and also the subtypes or the categories of the disorders. This has led to a medicalization of the human behavior, and at the same time, it has led to the financial interest, rather, it is promoting the financial interests of the pharmaceutical companies. The last point is with regard to the stigma. DSM provides a system of labeling. Each patient is labeled that he or she has a particular psychological disorder. This labeling may lead to stigmatizing or stigma, which will lead to further prejudiced attitude towards the patients who are diagnosed with psychological disorders. This prejudiced attitude may further lead to discrimination against these patients. Stigma and discrimination that is done towards these patients may aggravate or may increase their disability and distress. So, in this way, DSM indirectly contributes to increase in the distress or experienced by the patients with psychological disorders. Next, in this slide, there is a link that is provided which will help to explore the various categories of DSM 5. Now, to summarize with this unit, or rather with this session, we have discussed in detail about DSM. We have discussed the diagnostics and statistical manual of mental disorders, evolution of DSM, or the history of DSM, how DSM 1 came into vogue in 1952, and the one that is presently in use is DSM 5, which was put forth in the year 2013. We have also discussed the various strengths and weakness of the DSM. Thank you.